Hey guys, it's Rachel Castile and welcome to the channel. Today I'm doing an overview video on the ENTJ personality type, and I'm going to do it from the perspective of objective personality. So I'll be covering the jumper type, the standard type, and just overall all things ENTJ, and kind of get into those differences as I go along. So the ENTJ's functions is extroverted thinking, introverted intuition, extroverted sensing, and introverted feeling. So, as a dominant process, they are starting with a decision making function, and their primary human need is connection, it's tribe. They are most attuned to what's going on around them, the reasons of the collective around them. So, this could pertain to their family unit, the company they work for, society, um, whatever they are, a part of or contributing to. Um, this type is a group oriented type. They're a leader of groups very naturally. So that extroverted thinking being that dominant process. Secondarily, they have introverted intuition, which is their organizing, future oriented conceptual function, that they are retaining concepts that they are recognizing throughout their life. They're seeing patterns in things and they're organizing those patterns, making sense of them. They're becoming like principles to them that they live by, that they plan with. These, using these principles helps them create a plan of action for everyone, whatever group that they're leading. Um, yeah, from there, their third function is extroverted sensing. And this is a like in the moment present function. It's a gathering function, taking in new information, new facts that they don't already know, and just being in the moment and kind of absorbing what's going on around them. And it can cause them to enjoy just being in the moment, having fun, having a good laugh, poking at people in a sense. It's SE is very like um, touch it, try it, interact with the five senses sort of function, take in something new that's happening now, like a new experience. So they have that as a third process. And then the inferior function is introverted feeling, which is an identity process of knowing your own personal values, what's right and wrong, good and bad. I like it, I dislike it, just like an attraction to something or being repelled, just like your own moral code. Um, yeah, so that's a process that they're not putting as much time into because of being focused on tribe. Identity winds up being the one that, they're not putting as much time um, developing or being in tune with. Um, so that's the overall functions. I'm going to show you now what that looks like as we're seeing the standard and jumper. So I've got S's by the saviors and then D's by the demons. So for our standard type, it's just like Myers-Briggs, TE being the first savior and then NI being the second savior right here. That's the go-to decision maker, the go-to observer function that they're using that's aiding the decision making of extroverted thinking. And in our jumper type, they're jumping the NI as as the observer, preferred observer, and they're doing extroverted sensing, the gathering function. So this ENTJ is more extroverted, more focused externally, primarily most of the time. It comes natural to them to be more in tune with the sensory information, wanting to gather in something that they don't already have, that they don't already know. And they're not as guided by the known concepts, the known patterns that they've seen in things. They're not being led by it as much. So this is a more extroverted, dependent type. This is the muscle they're used to using. This comes, uh, it's kind of like whenever pressure's put on them, they go back to these. This is the tried and true for them. And then our standard is more going to go back to their principles, the known information, the known patterns. And they're like, hey, I know this to be true. I know this is what I've seen. This is what life has shown me. And we're going to use those patterns, those principles to make decisions on behalf of the collective. So now I'm going to get into just what does TE look like in general in both of these types. So ENTJs, that's their dominant process. That's what makes them what they are. So yeah, what does that look like to be tribe focused and in a logical reasons kind of way? These types are really good at leading organizations, reaching goals, being problem solvers to improve systems, to improve how a group functions together, to bring a company to the place it wants to be, to change the trajectory of a company, things like that. That NI is very present in our standard and our jumper type. So it's something that's very much informing that TE. So that can look like just like having a desired future, having a known path that we're going on. The patterns that the ENTJs are picking up are always informing them on where to go and where not to go. They are learning from everything they've been through. They've categorized the patterns. They're seeing like cause and effect, what led to this, the root of this problem, and things of that nature. What else can I say about NI? Yeah, NI aiding the TE causes them to be more like overview like, in a sense, like seeing the why, seeing the big picture of things and making decisions on that. When talking with the ENTJ, you might not get a lot of detail from like your standard ENTJ type who's relying on that NI a lot, but they're gonna explain to you why something is. You're gonna get the root, big picture, what's going on behind the scenes of something, and maybe not all the little details. They have them, but they're more guided by the intuitive knowings that they have about things. As they have sifted through information, these knowings, these patterns, these understandings are what's guiding them mainly in the standard type. Yeah. Let's see, what else? So extroverted thinking, they are attuned to the reasons of the tribe. So it will cause them to be like seeking feedback from people in order to make decisions. The more they collect from society, the people around them, the better they can lead those groups because they've gotten the consensus, in a sense, of what's going on in the community. I guess they're very community oriented. They're very in tune with others, to say it simply. Switch back to this. Kind of helps me stay on track a little bit. So, yeah, TE on an axis with the FI. So they are more in tune with people. So as a result, they're not as attuned to like where they stand on something, or even if they know something that they like, they might layer it in reasons, layer it in things that society would understand. It's kind of like needing permission, getting permission, or using society's reasons to support the things that they like, as opposed to like a higher FI type would just be guided by their FI, just not really need to justify what they like. They just live in it, live from it, and are comfortable that way. Our ENTJ is more inclined to not notice that what's driving them is actually coming from just purely, I don't like this, or I do like this, or this is purely just my personal belief, my personal value, and it's just a value of mine. Like, they might not be aware of that and could still be looking to society in a sense, looking for things that everybody else can agree upon, the reasons of people around them in order to express or to live by their FI. So yeah, that's something they both have in common. Looking at just differentiating between the standard and the jumper, our standard is more controlled in a sense. They are living in accordance to that NI's conclusions. So NI, it being an internal observer, it is patterns that is collected and refined more and more. It's gotten more and more concise. It's been filtered through. It's filtered down all of the SE into to like a point. And it's like, this is truth. This is the essence. This is the principle. Life shows this thing to be true. I live by this principle. I'm guided by it. It's guided by something internal. So this type comes to the outside world with, I almost use the word an agenda. That's not a negative thing. It's just prioritizing known patterns. So new patterns is not the thing. It's staying true to what the patterns have shown. It's like, I see this, I know it, and I'm going to make decisions that honors these categories. It's, NI kind of becomes categories of known patterns, and they will teach from this, share from this, where they've sifted through all of this information. And I wouldn't even call it like through the information, but in the information, the patterns arise. Their awareness is more on the pattern. And this being a savior in them, they've got a lot of time under these being refined, and they can trust their patterns. Their patterns have rung true for years, and they will lead from that. So our jumper type, what that looks like, them being more guided by the SE, this is more of a gathering type. So they're not putting as much time in tracking their patterns as much. They're going back out to something they don't know, taking in new information, taking in new experiences. They're saying, hey, I don't have enough facts in order to come to a conclusion yet. So I'm going out and gather. I'm going just get out there in the community. I'm going get out in the information. I need to read something I haven't read before. I need to take in more. That's where they it's more trusted of like, hey, push come to shove, my answers are in the new information. So they're going to be out gathering and not trusting the known patterns as much. So it's a bit of a variation. There'll be a higher curiosity for the new in our jumper ENTJ. And just to highlight that this doesn't make this type become an ENTP, right? Because that's kind of, using a perceiving, an extroverted perception function as the dominant perception. It makes them kind of ENTP but I still am showing this because the functions that they're using is the NI and the SE. The ENTP is using NE and SI. So that's just not the functions that they're operating in. But this type is just much more in the moment, much more wanting to engage with the present, and not as introverted as the ENTJ. The ENTJ is definitely a leader who's out there in the community, who is speaking, who is somewhat marshaling the group to go a certain way. These are very action-oriented types, but the standard ENTJ is leading from the patterns, and then the jumper is leading while gathering, leading and taking in more, leading and trusting the facts over the pattern, explaining from the facts more, giving lots of details. They're going to be giving more concrete information, while your standard ENTJ is giving more abstract, conceptual information about things, giving you an overview, giving you a picture, showing you the connections, and not so much the detail. The detail is something you kind of got to press on them to get. And they're like, you go get the detail. I'm not responsible for the detail, but here's what's going on. Here's the pattern. Here's the root. Here's the root cause of this. And because of that, we're going to go here. I can see this future happening, and maybe that's not a desired future. So we're going to go over here. This will have this effect. They can see that sort of things. It's like seeing what will happen. And because of them being really good at pattern recognition, based on observing those patterns, they then make a decision that is best for the collective, best for the group, that will work best. So as you can see, that could apply to so many different things. If you're in a company, it's like, hey, I see whenever when we were bringing in lots of people to work on the shift, and I'm trying to make up something here, but like we had like 10 people on the shift, and it always happens around 5 o'clock, or no, around like 8 o'clock. There's not much business, so we got way too many people on. We're, really using a lot on labor cost, and we already know future, right? It dies off around 8 o'clock. So I already saw the pattern. Like, there's no reason for us to keep people this late. We need to start letting people off sooner, and we only need maybe 3 people in the store instead of 10. We can see in the information that's a pattern that keeps happening. So we're overstaffed right now. That's NI making a decision to hit the goals of the company, seeing the problem, fixing it. And SE might be like, well, you don't know. How do you know for sure? Maybe today it's going to be busy at 8. And what if you let everybody go and then you've only got 3 people and it's busy? You can't really know for sure that it's going to die down today at 8 o'clock. What if it's busy? See, SE is like, I don't know. We're just going to see. We need to, be ready for the moment and be ready to change things up. And NI is like, no, it always, for the last month, it dies off around 7. So by 8, we're just wasting money at this point. We need to start changing the schedules, let people go home sooner, move it around, whatever we got to do. But there's no reason to have 10 people in the store around that time, because the pattern has always shown this. This is true. This happens. This person is always late, or whatever, is that sort of thing. Noticing the patterns of people, the patterns of organizations, the patterns of society, the patterns of all of those things. NI is like, this is the kind of person this is the kind of person this other person is. That was a lot of this is kind of person. I was trying to say it a different way. But yeah, this is the type of person they are. Whoa, are you putting them in a box? It's like, no, I just actually see their patterns. They do that. That's been happening. So that's a thing, right? NI, high NI people see the patterns of everything around them very naturally. Again, this is an observation function. Another good thing to highlight, ENTJs, all EJ types, and IP types, they are single deciders, therefore they are double observers. So they are pretty balanced in seeing the two. They're not way out of the moment, but they're also seeing the pattern. Observer types have an imbalance in those, so they're kind of way in on one and out of balance on the other. So our EJ types, no matter what the savior is between the jumper or the standard type, they're both pretty balanced. They see both sides. They're like, I get that things can change. I get that they're, we got to be open for what could happen that hasn't happened before. We got to experience the moment, but this pattern's real too. This is something that can't be ignored, and you'll see these types lean toward one or the other, and that's kind of where you get which one's a savior. Are they always saying, no, we trust the pattern? When pressure's on, we know the pattern is true. When the pressure's on, we can't really trust the pattern because things change in the moment. Your SE person's going to be more kind of leaning toward that form of thinking dominantly. Therefore, their growth paths are different. So where they're not spending time is where they're a bit weaker, that muscle's not being used. And it's to their benefit to develop that area of their life, to pay attention to it and to incorporate it in some way. Our high NI person might not be really engaging their SE and might not really be doing something like physical or out in nature or just enjoying, new experiences. And that could be something that could really expand their world, to step into that, to use that extroverted sensing, to be more present, to be more in the moment. What else could I say about extroverted sensing? To go out and gather something that they don't already know, something that, their patterns are working for them and they're leading just fine with the patterns they've seen, but they could also go out and listen to something they've never heard before, and it can start to stimulate and expand the patterns that they already have, and their principles may start to change, and they may have new principles as they encounter new factual information that's outside of them. So the gathering is definitely a positive thing for a savior NI ENTJ. And our jumper growth for them would be trusting the patterns that they already know, trusting the information they've already gathered, the things they've already seen, and saying, you know what? I see enough and I know enough to make a decision on that, and I don't need to go get something new. I don't need to think about what could possibly happen today that is different than what I've always seen, being like open to the new always and doubting the pattern. They can speak from what they already know and share it and be guided by it, make decisions on it. Yeah, again, this is all aiding the extroverted thinking. Decisions on behalf of the group, betterment for the group, listening to what works. I like to attribute engineering to extroverted thinking, how it functions, and making decisions, listening to what works, hearing the problems, resolving the problems, improving, getting better yield, better results is kind of the overall arcing priority of your ENTJ, is reaching goals, improving things, making things better. And so yeah, the growth is in spending time on the demons. So the common demon process they both have is that F5. That's their biggest life dilemma, will be getting in touch with the self, understanding what is actually valuable to them apart from everyone else, what's something that's just a them thing, and enjoying it, really letting themselves enjoy the self-discovery, stepping away, observing the self, unplugging from the thoughts of society, the thoughts of the whole collective, and to understand where they fall, what's meaningful, really what's meaningful to them. And to not feel that they have to justify what's meaningful to them, but just to live by it, to acknowledge, hey, this is coming just from my own personal likes and dislikes, and that's okay, right? And the more they can incorporate that in their life to understand what their personal values are, the more they will lead in a way that honors them, and that they don't lose themselves in being so others focused, or, fearing that they'll lose connection with the tribe, kind of causes them to not spend time in knowing their FI. But that's incredibly valuable for them to do, to get in touch with the self and to start incorporating that and make decisions on that, and not just make decisions on everybody else. And that just takes intentionality, really, to get balance in that area. That knowing your identity, knowing what matters to you, knowing your personal moral code, and not apologizing for it, living by it, making decisions for the self that is true to the self, and not jumping with the tribe's reasons. As the tribe says, hey, this is better over here, an ENTJ would be very inclined to move because of the better reasons. The product got improved and everybody likes this other product better because it has, a better processor, better this, better that. Society says that this is what everybody, needs to accomplish. These are the goals that society says that you need to hit. And they need to take a step back and be like, well, where do I fit in this personally? Do I need to chase that just because everyone's doing it? Or is it okay for me to walk a different path? And incorporating FI decisions can help them to be a part of communities and lead communities that they actually want to be a part of. It takes being in touch with the self to even, really know where you're being guided, So identity is very important for our EJ types. The more they get in touch with the self, the better leaders they become. Because they're always going to be a dominant leader type. They're very much always going to be connected to some collective, steering a collective in a new direction. They're just in tune with people. And because of that, they're getting that validation. They're getting that feedback constantly from people. They're very in tune with the spectrum of everybody else's reasons. And because of that, they just have a wisdom in how to lead. They are informed. Other types may be totally out of touch with the tribe and missing where the tribe really is landing on things. In hearing them, this type being tuned into that, they really can lead well and represent the whole collective in reaching goals. It's a very action-oriented type of function. Just think of that, it being a decisive, let's go this way. They can be perceived as domineering in certain states, I guess. It's just something to watch out for in how you lead, because it can be like, how do we get from point A to point B as fast as possible? What's in the way? That thing's in the way, and that thing could be a person, So like the way they could speak could be very potentially it can be offensive if people aren't being considered as much. It can be very obvious to them what is slowing something down, what is in the way. It's efficiency oriented, so they can speak in terms to get to the result quickly. So extroverted feeling has more grace to it in the way it speaks. It's attuned to the emotions, the values, the emotional states of people. And extroverted thinking is very much others focused, but it's more cut to the point. It's inefficiencies is probably their biggest frustration, or something that can annoy them very easily when things are very obviously going slower or has something in the way that they know they have the power to move, in a sense. So they can be like, go straight at it and remove the problem. It's kind of that way. It's improving, getting to the goal, whatever that is. So that's just something to watch out for, is in getting feedback from people, allow people to give, how do I say this? Give people the space, or communicate to people that they can give you that kind of feedback on what effect you're having on people around you, on your way to reaching your goal, on your way to moving the company forward, redirecting something that needs to be redirected. As an ENTJ, you're seeing lots of things that could be improved. You're seeing trajectories and changing trajectories based on the underlying things that you're seeing in the information. Like, hey, this is headed this way and we need to turn it. We need to turn it. This is not good for everyone. And I'm going to be the one to turn the ship. We need a new leader or we need to go and tell this leader things need to change. An ENTJ very blatantly can see those sorts of things, and it's like, hey, they are inclined to go straight at whatever's in the way. So yeah, give people permission to give you feedback on maybe how you're making people feel along the way, because it's more of a blind spot. I think the biggest thing I wanted to say about the ENTJ, and being so goal oriented, and being they're not speaking from FE. They're not speaking from emotional consideration entirely. So this is just a blind spot. This is they're wired to get stuff done, to move things forward, and yeah, communication is something that they can grow in. I'll just say it that way. The more they get in touch with their own FI, the more they, can kind of unplug from the goal orientedness entirely, I guess, as the only thing that matters. Their communication will get better and better and better. And they are very attuned to feedback. So more so, if you have an ENTJ in your life, and you feel like you are misinterpreting them, or you feel that how their goal orientedness could maybe have like inconsiderations in it, I guess, I don't know how to word this, just communicate with them, because it's more of something that is probably not intentional. And it's just something that needs to be communicated, and everybody improves in a situation when everyone is expressing what the other person can't see. So we all are light to each other, and we all grow from community, really, from getting feedback, from telling the truth. And yeah, so I think that's about it for their growth. Overall points: get in touch with your identity. If you're heavy on the patterns, the principles, branching out and getting in more information will just improve your patterns even more. And that's a way to get balance. For our jumper type, trust what you already know. Trust what you've already seen. Trust that your patterns are, there's something to them, and learn to let your patterns inform your decisions, and don't second guess yourself that it's got to be, nope, I can't actually change my influence based on what I'm seeing, because I need to go out and gather more. It's like, you probably are seeing something that you can build upon, that you can make decisions with. And trust your intuition. Trust your ability to see what's going on behind the scenes. It's not wrong, most likely. It's just uncomfortable. You haven't been trusting yourself to acknowledge your patterns as much. And yeah, keep being the leader that you are. ENTJs are absolute world changers. Every type is a world changer, to be honest. But the ENTJ, they're born to lead. They're born to see the cracks in things and to improve them. And they can change the trajectory of a family, of an organization, of society. They're very future thinking people, and driven by principles, driven by a deeper understanding, and they're visionaries. And we appreciate your vision. We appreciate the potential that you bring out of other people. You see potential. You see the futures of others, and you lead them into it. So that's really beautiful. Yeah, I think that's about it for the ENTJ. If you got value out of this, go and give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate the feedback and knowing that the video made an impact. Subscribe for future content. Also, check out the cognitive function series, if some of these functions are still fuzzy to you and you want a better understanding of the different pieces, I've got a playlist on the channel called Cognitive Functions, and it has a video on each of the 8 functions and just describing what that's like, what growth looks like within that. And yeah, if you'd like personal coaching or to discover your personality type and you want help kind of mapping out what it is, you can go to my website, typologycorner.com. It is in the description. And you can book a session with me and we can talk things out on whatever you like. So I offer various kinds of coaching, and that's all on the website. More information there. And yeah, guys, I think that's it. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your time, and I will see you guys on the next one.